you've navigated being both in adult work and then also a very public and like family friendly brand, marrying into the Property Brothers family. That's insane. So I'm curious how you feel you balance both. Welcome back to On the Horizon. This is Melrose Michaels. I am your host, and I'm here to share what's worked for me in building my adult creator business to try to make building yours just a little bit easier. Let's get into today's episode. Annalee Belle isn't just navigating one world. She's straddling two. As a celebrity makeup artist, she's worked with names like Glenn Close, A-Rod, and even Robert F. Kennedy Jr. She's been featured in People magazine, appeared on HGTV and TLC, and yes, she's married into the Property Brothers family. At the same time, she's built a thriving presence on OnlyFans, proving you can balance mainstream visibility with an unapologetic line of adult work. So how do you build two brands that don't compete but actually feed each other? How do you create fan relationships that span 15 years or more? And what really happens when you stop demonizing your audience and start valuing them as people? Today, Annalee is breaking down income growth, shadowban survival, and what it takes to build a career that thrives in and outside of adult work. Annalee, thank you so much for coming on and for taking the time to do this with us. I'm really, really stoked to chat with you today.
I am also very excited to be here. I wanted to do this for a long time, so thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. I'm glad we made it work. I am wondering, so I think the best place for us to start is to kind of educate and familiarize anyone who might be meeting you today for the first time or hearing about you for the first time. So, can you just share a little bit about your background and your journey in the industry so far?
Yeah, definitely. So I started modeling around 2009, and I kind of did more like alternative and glamour modeling, I guess. I was in the like traveling circuit, and I got into, I guess, fetish work around 2012 or so through some friends that I'd shot with. And I didn't really know anything about fetish. I had just been doing nude work, and like I'd done a little bit of maybe bondage here and there. And so that was kind of how I ventured into a little bit of the adult side of stuff. I had also been stripping at that time, and well, kind of going between stripping, bartending, and waitressing so that I could travel and build my modeling career. I had started doing makeup around the same time and had been working at Mac, and all of that just fed each other. So I would model for these photographers, and they would compliment my hair and makeup, and then I would tell them I did it professionally, so they would start hiring me. And I just kept making contacts through both modeling and makeup work. And I kind of just went wherever seemed fun and interesting. And that eventually led to being an extra in a porn. And a few years later, I ended up working for that company with my ex-boyfriend, and we did some porn together. I didn't really enjoy that experience. I think had it been, if OnlyFans were a thing, then I'm sure I would have kept doing it to have that control, but I didn't enjoy it in that way. And so I didn't go back to it. And a couple of years after that, I moved to Vegas. I had planned to just stay here maybe 2 to 5 years. And then, at that time, it seemed like at 30, your modeling career was done. And thankfully, that's not the case. But I met my husband, and that ended up snowballing into doing makeup for him and his brothers, the Property Brothers, on HGTV. And I worked with them for about 7 years until I quit in 2023. And then I got back into doing more adult work via OnlyFans out of partially just wanting to be home and, reestablishing myself in Vegas. I had been mostly in LA for a long time. And so I kind of had to fill those gaps, and also needing to support like family that needed help. So I just decided to try the OnlyFans thing and ended up doing great. And around the same time, I also started working with my hometown's tourism board, and everything's just kind of, I don't know, it's really interesting. All the things are going pretty well so far. It's not easy to manage it all the time, but I've got it all going. So it's been really just been such a blessing.
That's amazing. And you've been doing this work like consecutively kind of like 16 years now, which is a long time.
Yeah. I just finished a big job in Miami and someone asked how long I'd been doing makeup and I was like, "Oh my God, 17 years."
And that's like with any career, I think sustainability is a really important topic.
Yes.
And
Yes.
there's things that like make you able to sustain a career better than others. And the things that come to mind for me is like one, some putting some systems in place and optimizing. But something you said too that I think is really important is building contacts. Like you mentioned that early on, you started doing this work and you built out all these contacts. I'm curious from your experience because you're doing something so big in mainstream and also doing so well in adult, how have like having a network or building out your contacts come into play for you, like in a real life scenario? Like what benefit has it brought you?
Oh my God. I mean, that's everything. Like the people that you know, the relationships you keep, literally everything. You will be in your darkest times, have no work, but keeping those contacts and like staying good with people will literally save you. And I mean, some of the jobs I've gotten are just like insane. It blows my mind some of the work that I've gotten to do just because I was kind to somebody on set or I checked in with somebody after not talking to them for a couple years or even just interacted on social media. It puts you back into their mind. And I was just getting sugared the other day, and my sugar technician was asking me about like social media and stuff. She's like, I just really want to travel and teach courses, and I don't want to work so much. And I was like, look, that's the American dream now. Everyone wants to be a content creator. Everybody wants to have a course or an online thing where they can go wherever they want. And you can do that, but you have to still talk to people and keep in touch and like really nurture those relationships because that's, I mean, literally everything I've gotten to do in life has been because I kept good contact with somebody. I got a referral from somebody. And I think, especially after COVID, so many of us have a hard time going out in public and interacting with other folks. And that is still a really important part of building any career.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like this is something I talk to creators about kind of now from the Sex Work CEO standpoint and perspective is like I go to as many conferences as I can possibly afford resource wise because those relationships you build, that's where all the opportunities come from, or that's where you find solutions to challenges you're facing. It's like if I can't do whatever thing, I can, put out some feelers and someone else might know the answer that I don't necessarily know or have access to. And it opens the doors. And I think it also kind of produces speed and momentum so that you get to whatever goals you have faster. Like we always move more quickly together than alone. And I think that is so overlooked in our space.
Yes, I can't agree with that anymore. I think that feeds right into like the scarcity mindset of not wanting to share things with other people. But yeah, 100% you grow faster and stronger when you're building together.
1,000%, yeah. I want to also talk to you about something that I personally find pretty challenging.
Yeah.
And that is like, you've navigated being both in adult work and then also a very public and like family friendly brand, marrying into the Property Brothers family. That's insane. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering how you balance the two worlds, because even from my aspect with multiple businesses, I don't find balancing anything gets any easier for me. So I'm curious how you feel you balance both.
Yeah, I think, I've done a lot of during COVID, I just was at home and I couldn't work and my husband has a lot of health issues. And so we were like extra careful and I was like, okay, I can't like go help my community. I really actually have to stay home. So I just went heavy into self work. And one of the things that I really noticed was just balance. I think that's such a key word. And I think we're finally getting to a point where people are realizing we need balance. And at the same time, when you're building a business, when you are your own CEO, there is no balance 24/7. It's a matter of like, knowing your homeostasis kind of and like your happy place and knowing that at times you're going to be unbalanced, but it's really more about coming back to what feels best. And for me, I went through like different periods of trying to balance different things. So when I was I had a lot of trouble when I came into the HGTV world because I'd been online for a really long time. I'd never been bullied. I'd never dealt with any hate, maybe like the occasional thing from my hometown. I mean, I'm from Amarillo, Texas originally. It's the middle of Bible Belt in Texas. I was raised evangelical Christian. I still have a lot of friends and family that are that way. And my entire town pretty much found out that I did porn. And so I had to actually deal with that in person more than online. And I think that gave me somewhat of a buffer because when I started dealing with it online, it was really, really challenging. And I went through some like pretty severe, not quite full doxing, but borderline doxing. I had like these fake accounts made of my legal name underscore Annalee Belle and screenshots of my porn. And they would like, the second time it happened, they were tagging my husband JD and his brothers and HGTV and posting it on HGTV's Facebook page. And it was just like, there was no balancing it, it felt like at that point. And I was also a feature entertainer during that time. And I had a really, really bad experience. And I ended up just getting to this point where I felt very out of control of my own sexuality. And so I stepped back entirely from doing nudes. I kept doing modeling work, but like no more topless, no more naked. And so for me at that time, balancing was like, I need a break from this because I don't know how to healthily juggle all of this while maintaining an online persona. And then that was when I went into focusing more on doing makeup for the shows as well as beauty blogging. And so because I had something set up for myself that was not based on me being a sexy model online, I was able to pivot and really give myself like that mental break I needed. And I kept modeling more as just like more creative stuff. So that ended up working out okay. But yeah, for a while, the balance for me was actually taking a step back from that. And I used to do photography professionally as well. So like I could have also gone back into that. I could have gone into social media coaching. I had a lot of options. And I know that like not everyone is always in that space, but sometimes for me, I have to just step back. At one point, I took a 6-month social media break. I just focused on like makeup for the shows. But, I think balance looks different for everybody. And I think it takes a lot of getting to know yourself and knowing what actually makes you feel good and not like sitting with that, like shitting on yourself of like, I should be doing this. Like sometimes what we think we should do is not what we need to do.
If you're enjoying this podcast episode so far, please take one moment to share it with another one of your adult content creator friends, because you know what the rule is here. We do not gatekeep, and we want to make as many adult creators' businesses as easy as possible. And you sharing this episode with them might do exactly that. Thanks so much in advance. I love that you said that because I kind of like, I feel like I unsubscribed a little bit to the idea of balance just because for me, I think balance, it's so individual. Like everyone's seeking advice about balance, at least
Mhm.
in our communities, especially. And I'm like, it looks so individual for each person. Like for me, I can go really hard in one direction and have that be sustainable for a while. And then when I feel that it's not, then I lean on, another area of my life and I'll go pretty hard in that. But just the way I am, and I can hyperfixate and hyperfocus on things. So I think my balance to other people looks like a lot of extremes, but that's actually just the way I think and work. And like, it comes natural to me to do that. Whereas like segmenting things in a really even way, I don't task switch well. So that gets to be really hard for me.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, that individual approach is like the key there. So when you were going through like all of this doxing, obviously your two worlds kind of collided. You had people tagging all of this adult stuff to your mainstream, HGTV and like all of these brands that you're working with on your mainstream side of the career.
Yeah.
Do you keep these brands separate naturally? Like, do you try to establish them separate, or is there overlap in some way? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, there is a lot of overlap. So I mean, I started my Instagram in 2009, and at that point, you could do whatever you wanted to do. You could dabble here and there, and people were just interested because they were interested in you as a person. It wasn't so much about your niche, and I'm just so sick of this everything having to be so niche and like focus on this one thing. I understand that's how the algorithms work, but like humans are not one-dimensional beings. We are so multifaceted, all of us. And it, unfortunately for me, I'm stubborn. So I'm like, I am my page, my brand, and I want to share all the things I do. I actually now I have 7 different Instagram accounts and I don't run them all at the same time. I have a joint one with my husband that we don't really use, haven't used in years. It's so outdated. It's kind of cringy. I have one like when I do reselling because I was doing that for a while. I have a separate makeup account so that if people are looking to book me for makeup, they can actually just see my makeup work. But all of my, like primarily all of my OnlyFans promotion and like modeling stuff and tourism work and beauty and like mental wellness was all on my main Annalee Belle account. I separated that and created a modeling account a few months ago because I'm sure, as every single person here knows, we're getting real prude on social media, and posting sexy stuff is just a real risk. And I can't risk my account getting shut down. So I did end up separating that out. And I'm not going to really be posting as much sexy stuff on like my main Instagram. My Facebook's a real mixed bag. I kind of just post whatever I think is going to perform well there. But, and then my Twitter, or X, I just post whatever I feel like on here. So I do separated it out, but it's a lot of work. And I think it's one of those things you also just have to be realistic with that, with yourself, of like, how much time and resources do I really have to run separate accounts, especially if you're messaging fans and really engaging in your DMs. You got to be real careful how many accounts you have.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot to manage, especially like smaller creators to your point that are still, they haven't built out a team to support them or they don't have a lot of resources to help, hire
Mhm.
someone to support them. I like to talk about that aspect too because a lot of the advice, because we put out so much public information and education and it's widely available, but it's not for every creator at every level, and it can be very overwhelming when you see things online that you feel like, oh, that sounds like a good idea to do, or that strategy makes sense or whatever, but everything is like dependent on where you are at the time. Like a new creator shouldn't be trying to be omnipresent across 10 different social platforms and if they don't have the resources or team to support them. So like every bit of advice almost comes with like the caveat of if you are at X place in your career, then this
Yes.
might work for you. And that gets overlooked pretty often. You've said that you feel it's possible to move in and out of sex work, although maybe not recommend like flip-flopping constantly.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if you can share more about why you think that and how it looked for you and why you feel so strongly about it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's possible because I've done it. And I'd say what 99.999% of people are not navigating being part of or trying to be part of a mainstream family friendly brand and having done actual porn that's like pretty hardcore and not necessarily legal in the US. So I'm like, if I can do it, literally anybody can do it. I would definitely recommend having like some sort of therapy, life coaching support system in place because it's not easy going in and out of it. That's a pretty big pivot. Your day to day looks very different, especially now with OnlyFans. That's an incredibly different, just the amount of time it takes because of the chatting element. It's way, way, way different than when I started doing it, even right before I stopped in like 2014. So, I mean, I think it's possible because aside from just my own having done it, I've seen other people do it, and everyone has fans that are going to stick with them through everything, whether male, female, or any other gender. Like they're going to be there for you, and they may not support you only through your sex work. I've had several guys that have been with me for like 15 years, and one of them, well, a couple of them have been like hugely supportive in like other ventures as well. So some of them will help me if I'm like interested in pursuing some different type of travel content, whether they want to contribute to like the Airbnb or send money for coffee or, little things like that. And that's why I'm just so big on keeping good relationships with everybody, whether it's fans or people in person, because especially when you're meeting like coworkers and colleagues, those people become interested in you as a person too. And if they know that you're pivoting, they'll keep you in mind for whatever might fit your current thing. And I don't have a ton of those people in my life, but there's enough of them that have followed me into different things I've been focusing on. Or even if I do, sometimes I'll do makeup and hair for these like travel photo packages where women can just come book with the photographer and they basically get a girl's trip out of it, plus photo shoot, plus hair and makeup, but they're also getting to hang out with me and they've been following me for however many years online. So I've had people kind of like go in and out of that, or men will buy those packages for their wives, girlfriends, stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really just about making sure that you're not setting yourself up to where you only do one thing. And especially in the modern age, I don't think we're at a point where we can just do one thing anymore and it be sustainable for more than a few years.
Yeah, we don't have that same like mentality of, you go into a career and you have this sense of security and it's going to be what you do for the rest of your life. That's not, the reality of present day anymore. Which is so interesting because you see that in the gig economy where you have models, but you also have like the Uber drivers and whatever of the world where everyone with a main job pretty much has a side hustle as well, and they don't stay at their jobs super long term. It's an interesting thing that's happened just generally in the US economy, at least the US market. I want to touch on something you said because you talk about relationships and you expand that to fans as well. And you've said, and you've said in the past that you genuinely value your fans and you probably hang out with them in real life. And I'm wondering, has this mindset shaped the way you connect with your subscribers compared to maybe just treating them as like purely transactional?
Oh yeah, big time. It's just interesting because my experience with fans was very different before I met JD. And once I came into his world, the difference between male and female fans is significant. And this is a perspective I don't think I would have ever had otherwise. But women are rabid. Like middle-aged women, way, way, way more aggressive than men. And I'm sure some people are going to disagree with me on that, but I've seen it. And we would go, like, I remember the first time we did a celebrity fan cruise thing where it was based around like Property Brothers and some other HGTV talent. And it was mostly, middle America, middle-aged women that booked these packages. And we had like a photo shoot line. And I remember like JD and his brothers getting their butts grabbed. And this one woman who I've interacted with plenty online, we're walking by her one day and she asked me to take a picture of her with JD. And I was like, yeah, of course. I grab her phone and she tried to kiss him on the mouth right in front of me. And I was just like, oh my God, this is nuts. And so I actually had a lot of resentment towards fans for a little bit because these boundaries were getting crossed a lot harder than I had ever experienced. But then we started doing meetups when we would be working in other cities and we would like go meet at a bar and, whatever happened, we'd bar hop or, if it ended early, that was fine. But I ended up having a really nice time. And then I had a huge shift around our wedding because before COVID, JD had mercury poisoning and he was really sick. We didn't know what was wrong for a while, thought he was going to die. And luckily, we were able to get it treated. But when you're going through really intense illness, people, I think, are just uncomfortable with it and they tend to fall off. And a lot of people were not checking on him, especially like close people that you really thought would be the ones that would be there for you. And so he was really lonely. And it ended up being like his inner circle of women on Patreon that checked on him more than anybody. And it like crossed the line from just being fans to them genuinely being concerned and wanting to know how he was. And he ended up inviting them to our wedding. And I was like not thrilled about it. I didn't love the idea, but so much has shifted since then. And just how I've seen like it's possible to really become friends with your fans. I just had to start looking at everything different. And I realized that even with my fans, I was like, these are human beings. Like they're not just fans, that word is really quite dehumanizing because, even if you think about like a Justin Bieber and his fans, there's some local people out there, and we tend to kind of lump all of everybody into this like rabid fan type thing, or like that they're just too obsessed with one person. But we're all fans of different things, and we do come to care about people we follow online, whether, you consider yourself fan, follower, supporter, whatever. And so when I started my OnlyFans, I've had Patreon for quite a long time, but I don't really interact there like I do on OnlyFans. So when I started it, just that instant messaging thing and having conversation and realizing that I was like, oh my God, a lot of my fans are actually really funny and they're really cool. And the fact that some of them have stuck with me through my going in and out of sexy work and knowing so much of my history, knowing that I'm married, not being disrespectful about my husband, actually being interested in how his health is as well. It was just like made me think so much differently about everybody. And then I got to this point where when I would have, we all get the guy that subscribes and just instantly sends the most raunchy, disgusting message. I got to this point where even when I would get those messages, I made myself stop and think, hey, this guy's probably gotten away with that with all these other creators because there's so many management companies running these accounts and other people who are just desperate for the money so they won't correct the behavior. Fortunately, I'm not in that position. So I just took time out of my day to be very stern but polite and correct the behavior. And some of them have turned into some of my biggest spenders. And it's just made me think about fans being human a lot differently.
Yeah, I think, and I've mentioned this to our audience and on our channels in the past too, is like you can train your audience to interact with you in an appropriate way, like the way you want to be interacted with. But it does take a little bit of investment on your part because obviously, like us, they can't read your mind either, and they are getting away with different behaviors in different places. I mean, from the data I have, it's like the average fan is subscribed to 10 pages, which is
Mhm.
the average, which is crazy to me. That's a lot of subscriptions. Um, but if they're talking to 10 different models with 10 different personalities, people are behaving 10 different ways. And so, like, I think training your fan to like engage with you the way you want to be engaged with, or support you the way you want to be supported, or speak to you the right way, like all of those things can be done with a little bit of investment. So I love that you talk about that because it's something a lot of creators overlook because after so long, you do start to associate fan with like the rabid fan persona and not a real person behind a username. You've had fans who stuck with you for like 15 plus years.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering, what do you kind of think the key to building relationships like that last that long are in this business?
Man, I think a lot of it is that my content online is very personable now. I'm sure that even if it weren't, some people would stick around, but I don't know that they would have converted into big time supporters. But I'm just very real about stuff online. I talk about controversial subjects sometimes, and I advocate for men a lot, which is super not popular these days. But I have a huge heart for men and men's health, and I actually didn't start OnlyFans as soon as I wanted to because I didn't want to contribute to this rampant incel culture that is a huge problem. And so what I decided was to just come at it in the way that I do now of being more like caring and empathetic. And I try to convey that even in my social media. If I'm promoting, like something spicier, I try to just be more mindful in how I'm promoting it and not be as just in your face sexy. I do a lot of pinup work, so it's easy. That kind of softens it and makes it feel, I think, a little more approachable sometimes. And I think that's kept the door open with a lot of my male followers. And because some of these guys had been with me so long, they were single when they found me and they're married with kids now. Some of them with like adult kids or getting close to adult kids. And so they're just at very different points in their lives. And so a lot of the stuff that I talk about on social media is very relatable to them and what they're dealing with, either with themselves, their families, their wives, and or their jobs. And so I get a lot of feedback in that realm. And I've started getting a lot of that on OnlyFans too, where the men there will message me about something I posted on my social media. Even now that I'm doing a lot of travel content, I'm getting it's wild because I've got like guys, they're like, oh, I want to come to Amarillo for that Route 66 festival that you host. It looks like so much fun. And I'm like, I just never thought that my travel work was gonna be interesting to these guys, but because they have families, they're really into it. And so I think there's just a lot of that kind of growing together that has made a difference. And I also am just real quick to tell them how stoked I am that they've stuck with me for so long. And I acknowledge, hey, I'm glad you like stuck with me through all the changes I've made over the years. And I think them just being aware of a lot of what I've gone through, it makes them kind of want to stick around longer.
Yeah, the growing together is a really unique piece of what we do as creators. Like, I know so many creators get kind of almost put inside a box, but like self-imposed, myself included. I've totally been there, where it's like you don't want to change or talk about anything else or try anything else outwardly publicly because it's not what you'd quote unquote do, or it's not what you're quote unquote known for, or whatever. And the reality is, like, just like we age and evolve, so does our audience. And while we're probably still getting new people through the door, the people that have been with us, like, they're interested in the journey as a whole. It's hard to just, freeze someone in time and assume that they'll just live and exist in that space. And it's just not realistic. I don't think people think like that as much now as they used to. Whereas like before in our industry, you get questions about like, oh, they're aging out. They're not going to make content much longer. They won't be, fun to watch anymore. Like that doesn't really, I don't feel like that happens the same way it used to. Whereas now everyone just evolves and their audience kind of gets to evolve with them. It's such a unique creator experience these days.
Yeah, totally. I agree. I mean, like I said earlier, I totally thought I was going to be aged out by 30 and done modeling and I would just be doing makeup, hair, and photography and whatever else. But I'm 37 now. And I mean, I'm making more money than I ever did as a model now.
Yeah, yeah. On the flip side of, I guess, this coin, you know, you can bring in your audience and really make them feel like friends and build real rapport and real relationships, but at some point there's still kind of boundaries that need to be set. And you mentioned experience with your husband, even like in the mainstream work, like his boundaries getting violated by women, especially. Which I do see that, like when I see celebrities and stuff, like even like just on TV or whatever. It's usually the women that go for the grab or go for the whatever.
Yeah.
It's so strange to me.
Yeah.
That if we don't like being touched, that we would be out there
Yes.
touching others.
Right.
But I'm wondering, how do you set boundaries while still making those connections feel, so real and become so lasting? Like, how do you draw lines?
Yeah. So that's, I think that's really hard, especially when money is involved, because I definitely I've gone a lot farther on OnlyFans than I wanted to when I started because of the money being so easy, especially once you learn how to drip sext. It's really easy to just keep going, especially if you like get a wild hair in your ass and you're like, I'm just going to put $150 on this PPV and see if they unlock it. And they do. You're like, oh, cool. Well, I'm going to just keep going and see how much I can make today. So I think that's one of those things that sometimes, like in that context specifically, not taking my photos and video in like on OnlyFans and doing it in my camera roll first and then looking at it, that gives me a good boundary break there. And that initial reaction of like, oh, that's too much, I'll just delete it. I don't even give myself the option to post it later. I'm like, no, this is like deleted. I'm going to my recently deleted folder and deleting it out of there too. And so that's one of those things that I kind of have my own system for if I'm potentially going too far on like the limits I want to share. I also have different boundaries with different people. So one thing that's really easy for me with the type of information I share about myself, not even just more explicit content, but the type of stuff I'm willing to talk about, if I'm willing to actually talk about mental health, because that's one of those things that people want to make you their counselor real quick. And no, you're not paying me for that. If you want to pay me however much an hour, maybe, but you're not going to get both like counseling and sex work out of me. It's just a very weird thing, especially because I do want to move into coaching later. That's one of those things that I don't like. That's a boundary for me, is not meshing those two together. But I have some subscribers that seem a lot less mentally stable than others. So with those guys, I keep it much more surface. I'm not as prone to tell them if I have events going on. where like anybody in the public could come to. I'm not really going to update them on my day-to-day life as much versus I have like one guy from my hometown. He's married, has a family. I actually used to party with him back in the day, but he's one of my biggest supporters now. And I'm very, very open with him because his wife is actually a fan of mine too. And I had like planned to get lunch with them once, but that was more on like an old friend level kind of thing. And so I think it's just really a case by case basis with some people. But as a whole, I just don't sell like my most explicit content with just anybody who just subscribed. I won't talk about really personal stuff with somebody unless I kind of get to know them. Well, I just don't really talk about super personal stuff in general on OnlyFans, but there are a couple that I will share more with because I know enough about them and or I have like I don't want to say blackmail, but I have like blackmail content on them. You know what I mean? Like if they tried to fuck me over, I could fuck up their whole life and they know it. So it's a very interesting way of kind of setting boundaries. And I just feel like on specifically with OnlyFans, Patreon, Fansly type stuff, you kind of have to have a case by case basis with your big spenders. But broadly for subscribers, I'm just careful about how much information I share about myself or what type of content I send out.
Yeah, I think I'm the same way. Like as I get to know each fan individually, like I feel like I can start to gauge how safe I am or how much to reveal or whatnot. And then also the thing that like for me that I really if kind of it'll never not bother me. But like when it shouldn't, I don't think. But when a fan comes to my page and they already know like all about me, like all about
Mhm.
my life, or they've like clearly done some recon on social and like found old socials or old posts that I didn't even know were out there. Like when they come knowing too much, like while I'm grateful that they're interested, it freaks me out because I'm like, we haven't, had a time to interact or engage. So like now you know so much about me and I know nothing about you. And that disbalance or like that, dissonance in the relationship always it puts me uneasy.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about strategy because obviously the creators that follow our stuff, they're the business savvy entrepreneurial type. One of the things that you've talked about is doubling your income on OF in just 1 month, and even being there for over a year without viral growth. So I'm wondering what shifted you or like what made that possible for you because so many creators listening, I'm sure would love to make that happen.
Yeah. If I just was to give a very straightforward answer, sexting made a huge difference. I did not want to do any sexting when I started OnlyFans, and I didn't. And I had a management company for a little bit, and I caught them like sexting when I had like very specifically told them not to, and I ended up dropping them. Um, and I was just really against it. And then I think I just got more comfortable. I've never sexted in my real life. So it was a very brand new thing to me. And that it was a whole learning experience. But I think once I just kind of played around with it and I got a little more comfortable, I realized that I was like, oh, I don't have to sext in a normal way. I can just send content. Like, I don't have to send these typed out messages that don't sound like something I would say. I can just let them say what they want to say. And then I can reply with a photo or a video. And so I just got really strategic about how I was sexting and I wouldn't call it sexting. And I also stopped selling sexting sessions and just started doing drip sexting instead of being like, hey, do you want to do a sexting session since like it's getting pretty spicy? I just would go along with whatever they were saying and then start sending PPVs. And that made a huge difference. Literally doubled my income in a month. I also that month had played around with free trials for the first time. I had never done a free trial before. I did have a lot higher traffic, but I actually don't think the majority of the money was not from subscribers that ended up staying after that because I probably only gained like I'm trying to think. I remember the biggest one I did. I think I only had like 100 that stayed on after that trial, and I still ended up doubling my income. Like that was not from a $10 subscription. So it was really just like my strategy and how I was interacting with people, and I was just online a lot more. And that's unfortunately that to me, I have found with OnlyFans, you really get out what you put in. If you're not on there chatting, doing stories, keeping your feed going, you're just not going to get as much money coming back, even if you schedule everything out. It just does. And I live stream a lot. I was streaming a lot at that time, which helped. But yeah, it was really just changing up my strategy big time.
Yeah, I talked to creators about this too, because a lot of creators, obviously, sexting, being really engaged in DMs is super time intensive. So I get it. If you're a creator that prefers to, post to a clip store or run a different business model, time intensive work like DMs or even live camming is going to be a lot. But the value that most of these agencies bring, and I want to make this so clear to creators listening, because I get asked the agency question all the time. Agencies don't bring you traffic.
No.
They take a huge percent of your page, and
Yes.
all they do is activate your DMs with sexting sessions. They're really only selling one thing. They're selling custom videos if you take customs. They're selling video calls if you do video calls, whether that's inside Telegram or Snapchat or some other third party. They're selling content for people specifically asking for certain types of content from your vault, and they're sexting. There's only four things you can sell in DMs outside of building relationships with fans. So when someone goes in and activates their DMs, that is the biggest lever that you can pull on a page to increase revenue outside of getting like some viral traffic thing to send a shit ton of new people your way, which is harder to do. And also some formula that is hit or miss at times, depending on the algorithm. So like, I love that you brought up the management and seeing management come in and do that, because also management, they're never going to do it well because they don't know you or your brand. So like they're replicating an unknown, so for a creator to just sit down and like commit, like, okay, if I really want to make or double my page revenue or increase my page revenue, let me sit in DMs and like really just do this. Like that is always the biggest first lever, at least OnlyFans specifically.
Yeah, I I ended up joining this management company because it was basically a friend of a friend, a friend of a photographer friend, and he was telling me how much these models were making when they shot with him the first time versus when they'd come back a few months later. And I was like, "Oh my God, if I could make even a fraction of that, like I'm so in and I'm happy to give a percentage." And so when I first joined with them, they were actually really good. I just was not open to sexting, and it made me so uncomfortable that I was like, no, 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 this is past my boundaries. I'm not cool with this. I don't need to sell my soul right now. But then when I started sexting, I was like, you know what? If I go back to them, the way they were selling those sessions so fast, like this would totally be worth it now. And I can get some help, especially when I'm traveling and doing tourism work. It's really, really hard for me to stay on OnlyFans as much as I want. And I had it separated out where, like I still was interacting with people all the time, but they were just helping like send out content and stuff like that. So I have a meeting with them. I decided to get back on. They didn't tell me they had totally redone how they do everything, that they don't sell sexting sessions anymore, that they try to only do drip sexting and all this other stuff. But then when they were doing drip sexting, they would just pull shit from random sets. And I was like, the point is you have to have it look like continuity. It needs to look like they are in this moment with me, not, oh, you like my butt here? Look at my butt in this set from 10 years ago. And it just got to where it's this really convoluted thing. And like they were not making the money that had they been operating the same way they had before would have been great, but they didn't tell me they changed stuff. Anyways, it just ended up being like a total shit show. And I had also tried a friend's company in between those. And yeah, that one killed my income as well. So yeah, I would just say if you have a friend that can help you out, train them, have them do it. But yeah, the management companies, I think, and I think all the fans have caught on. My guys tell me all the time, they're like, no, we know, like we can tell every other page has a management company. It's
Yeah.
obvious. They all sound the same.
Yeah, 100%. And so I like that you brought this up too, because like so many creators ask about agencies, because like it's such a dream fantasy. Like, oh, I'm gonna give you my page, I'm gonna make 5 times the revenue, and I'm gonna do way less stuff. Like, unless you have millions of followers where they can churn and burn your audience, like get them on the page, extract as much revenue as possible. Obviously, they have a bad experience. The fan has a bad experience because they're just being hard sold to every day, every night. They unsubscribe, and a new fan comes through the door because you have these monster socials. But like, that churn and burn model, that's what kills pages, and that's what kills trust with your audience. And that's why those creators hop from agency to agency, because they're promising to fix what the last agency broke with the same exact approach that doesn't work. And I really encourage, like, while I know maybe one or two crazy good reputable creator agencies out there, that take great care. And really, they're providing more of a service similar to like what a modeling agency would provide. Like they're, brand deals, they're figuring out traffic partners for you. They're like doing way beyond chatting. Like that's a portion of what they'll offer you as a creator. And those are like real, future building, empire building approaches, which is great. But
Yeah.
they also aren't taking models on without millions of followers, because they still need exposure, which is still something you as the creator have to bring to the table.
Yeah.
But beyond that, like hiring a VA or a virtual assistant and really working and investing in them to like get to know your brand, get to know you, get to understand your voice and like support you in DMs. I'm all for that, especially just managing the content or managing the questions like that, we all get asked a million times a day. Like they can sort through your DMs, answer the stuff that you don't need to be answering yourself, and then leave the sexting drip chats that are active to you, or leave like the real ongoing engagement chats to you. Like I think that's a great approach for most creators, that they don't
Yeah.
have to go that agency route. And why give up a portion of your page when you can have a fixed hourly rate, or somewhat a VA you pay on commission of what they sell for you, or help
Mhm.
get unlocks for you or schedule for you, whatever the task is. I just think that that's way more sustainable, way more realistic, and also a way better experience for the fan. Like the
Yeah.
agency thing is terrible. It's
Yeah.
really terrible.
Yeah,
Um,
I completely agree with all of that. I don't know if you ever watch Soft by Underbelly on YouTube, but he just recently interviewed a management company owner, and I would just encourage anybody who is potentially looking into management or anything, or just curious about it, to watch that one, because it's pretty insightful. The stuff that he shared was there's just no the way they use AI and stuff was I had no idea that anybody was even using it at that level, and my mind was blown. But it, like he said, his girls hadn't even created new content in like 11 months. But it's exactly what you said. He only takes girls that have so many, like millions of followers, and they have to already be making so much money per month, because it is a full on brand building thing. And
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't recommend it.
Yeah, I think like, so one of the things that I've talked about for creators is like, we're all in this creator hamster wheel of coming up with new content constantly, what have you. And if you know and understand, like if you're looking at your OF or any adult work you do as a business, you'll start to be able to figure out, hopefully with data, hopefully you have some kind of analytics you understand, or CRM that is helping you with your page. But you can see how long your average fan stays subscribed, right? And if you
Mhm.
know that your average fan, like for me, my average fan is staying on subscribed to my page, unless they're the whales or like the loyalists or like the diehards, they're coming through the door and leaving them in about 3-4 months. So like for all the stuff that goes up on my feed for OF, it'll be on like a 4 or 5 month cycle where it'll run, through all of this content for 5 months. At the 5 month point, it begins running through it all again, because none of the
Mm.
people still on the page have seen any of it. And the people that are my like diehard loyalists, they're not looking at the feed, because we have a whole relationship in DMs where they're getting new content in DMs or customs in DMs, or, whatever it might be. So like for creators that listening that are really committed to the OF model, because given you don't have to do that in adult, you could do phone sex, you could do live webcam, you can do, an assortment of different things. But if you do want to do that, then you can also mitigate some of the workload with the feed by recycling stuff after X amount of time, depending on what the lifetime value of your subscriber is. So I want to throw that out there. And also, I want to mention what you said about the sexing sets. Like, I create more sexing sets than I do new content, because of what you described, like having that back and forth in DMs is where all the money gets made, but also making sure you're not breaking that illusion. Because again, that is absolutely what the agencies fail at. They're just like,
Mhm.
oh, the chat is talking about ass, I'm gonna send an ass pic, and it's like random,
Mhm.
different outfit, different look, 10 years old.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and the illusion is just shattered. And then it's like, oh, well, I'm not talking to this person. Like, obviously not, because I'm not sending you a selfie of my ass right now, and then a selfie of my tits in the exact same look and the exact same bed and the exact same
Mhm.
lighting. So yeah, we just did a whole podcast episode on sexting sets and how to create them and kind of like how to build a library of them so you always have them at the ready to
Mhm.
run with a fan in DM. So I'm glad you brought that up because I think that if you're sticking with the OF model or fan site model with active DMs, like the sexting sets is almost more important than new long form video content, like explicit
Oh
videos.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And you know what? I'll like I don't really share this little strategy with very many people, but one thing that I have found super useful is I don't know, sometimes video just feels really intimate, and I don't want to share that with everybody, especially if it's a newer subscriber. So I'll take like a sexting set video and I'll just screenshot the photos of it and then I sell those to someone who I like don't know as well or don't trust as much because then I can keep like say it was like a really lippy shot because it was from like a low angle, I'll crop it to where it's not showing that much. Then I don't have to shoot new content. I already have the thing. And then if they're spending so much money and they want, if they're like, oh my God, show me a little lower, well, I'll just go to the video and I'll find an angle that shows a little bit more, screenshot it and sell it. And oh, it saves so much time. So much time.
I love that. That's also a similar strategy that creators have mentioned in the past where like they're shooting video and like while like before they go to shoot their like let's say full explicit video, they'll kind of like stand and pause in front of their camera in a bunch of different ways or even just
Mhm.
like going through the motions of figuring out what angles you want to shoot in to feel like this is what I look good in. And then they'll screenshot that like random video clip and use that as like a photo set to accompany the actual video that they filmed. And I'm like, oh, that's such a nice little double dip hack. I love stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's just we have so much content as is, and storage is, you got to pay for it. So I'm like, all right, well, let me just record the video, take the photos from there, and then I'll just delete the photos. And if someone wants something later, I just go back to a video and screenshot whatever I need.
Yeah, it's perfect. I really am impressed with the fact that you've maintained this like mainstream career and you have this adult career. And I think that as our industry evolves, we're seeing a lot more of that. We're seeing, l- and excuse whatever names I drop. It doesn't mean I associate or love these people. I'm just saying they've done it, and that's kind of a fact.
Hmm.
But you have like the Lena Plugs of the world who have Plug Talk podcast and whatever, and then they do a lot of really mainstream work, or like the Kazumis who are over at Paris Fashion Week or are shooting for couture brands, or Lana Rhodes who now walks like proper runways. Like
Yeah.
we have so much bleed now where it's like this decade, kind of for the first time it is semi acceptable to be a porn performer or an adult creator and do something mainstream, with stigma or bias probably attached, but you're still able to do it.
Yeah.
I think that's really a cool time to kind of do this work. For creators that are listening and want something like that. Maybe they want a huge YouTube channel alongside their adult work or a huge podcast, or they want to open up, a shop in their local community or whatever it might be. What advice do you give them in approaching that? Because I know for me, before I launched SWCEO and my YouTube channel, I had an overwhelming fear of doing anything mainstream because I knew it could bring more eyeballs to the fact that I did adult. And I was dealing kind of with my own internalized shame about that.
Hmm.
And so I'm wondering if you could advise someone that wants something like this, but it is in kind of that early position of being almost afraid of the success of it, because that's how I would frame it.
Yep.
What would you tell them? AKA, what would you advise me?
Yeah. I think like now it's easier than ever to keep it separate because like I mean you've been online for quite a long time as well. Back in the day there were not a lot of people online. So if you became known, I mean, I don't know how it is for you, but like when I used to go out, I used to get recognized a lot. Nobody gives a shit anymore. Nobody cares who I am. Nobody recognizes me. I mean, unless I'm like in my hometown or I've been in Vegas for a long time, so like it happens more here, but it's so much more rare now because everyone and their mom is a creator, literally. Like people's grandparents, people's pets, everyone is on whatever social media platform, and especially once TikTok became a thing, like that just took it to a whole other level. So I feel like now it's so easy to build out separate brands by just having a separate account. And I mean, I can say that just from recently, having started my Annalee Belle model Instagram, that one, it's just nuts. Like even the stuff the algorithm feeds me, because it's a new account, it's entirely different than what my makeup account or my main account or my resale account. All of those things show me totally different things and they suggest me to different people. So I feel like it's a lot easier now if you want to try to keep it separate. But ultimately, if you do make it big, it's hard for me because to like give the advice, I guess, because I started out stripping in my hometown and like everybody knowing about it. And I was just like, fuck it, because I was living a life that I wanted. Stripping gave me the freedom to travel all over the country, to meet really cool people. I started, doing makeup and hair for like fitness competitions. And then that ultimately brought me to Vegas the first time. And it just opens, like, sex work opens so many incredible doors for me. I would have never met my husband if I weren't a nude model. Like my friends, had a magazine and I was on the cover of it, of the nude edition, and he had that magazine and he started following me on Twitter because of that magazine, and that's how we started talking. Like, so I think when it's really easy to settle into the fear of it, and trust me, like if anyone knows about the fear, I do. I literally was in the middle of pitching a TV show with my husband and it got canned because partially budget cuts, but also because somebody was posting my porn screenshots all over HGTV's page. And it just wasn't cool at that time. But like you said, like now it's pretty acceptable. And I think if we were pitching the same stuff now that we were pitching then, they would totally go for it. They wouldn't care about what my past was or whatever, because as a whole, I guess because I do a lot of pinup work too, and pinup is really palatable for most people, even if it's super sexy. It's so stylized and so pretty that it's a lot more accepted. And that's actually another thing that I think a lot of creators don't think about. They just put out like kind of raunchy looking content. And if that's your thing, that's fine. But when you put out raunchy content to the public, to like your social medias, it if it's not done in a like 70s smut raunch kind of way, like with a vintage fun feel, and it just looks like poor quality, it makes you look cheap, unfortunately, versus that's the kind of stuff that sells really well on OnlyFans. So maybe save it for that, but really invest on your social media and making yourself look a little more put together, high quality, nice outfits. And they don't have to be expensive. It just needs to look nice and curated, because I think it conveys this message that you care about yourself or that you're investing in your brand. And that gives people immediately a little bit more respect for how you are. I guess it's kind of like, is it RuPaul's like dress for the job you want? Just kind of ties into that. And so I think yeah, it's just easy to play into the scary side of what could go wrong if I blow up. But ultimately, it's something that's really cool to be proud of me. Like, yeah, I did sex work and look at this incredible life I created for myself. Like, way more free than most people.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And also I love that you brought up like dress for the job you want kind of vibe, because I think it's so easy to see what a lot of creators are posting for free or posting online, or how explicit things are, and thinking you have to do the same just to compete for attention or compete for clicks or whatever. But the reality is, the top performing OF models are barely getting nude or doing implied nude.
Hmm.
Like they're influencers, not even,
Yes.
they would never consider themselves sex workers, even though,
Yeah.
you know, that's a controversial topic. But
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because like the art of the tease is so alive and well, and it's so proven as a strategy that even as you're talking, like I even need the reminder because I'll post a really explicit thumbnail and whatnot. And I was just thinking about my Twitter right now. I was like, wow, I could really do a little cleanup there because I got away from myself. And that's kind of like the cycle, at least for me. It's like I do a little too much because I fall into the same of what I'm seeing. I'm like, I gotta scale it back. I didn't need to do all that. And I think that's just self-awareness and also evolving over time. Like the industry has also changed over time, and things are a little different now than they were a decade ago, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Like, it's a much more accepted thing now, but at the same time, the platforms are way, 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 way more prude than they used to be. So it's a very weird double-edged sword. And I think even, with pushing your own boundaries, and being like, oh, maybe I showed too much there. That was a little bit whatever. That's the cool thing is you can delete it. If it's really too much, you're like, cool, I'm like, just delete this or archive it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a website. I don't know if it's still around. So if I say this and it's not, I'm sorry, guys. But there was a website I used to use. It was like called Tweet Delete or something. And you could go in, log into your Twitter through their website. I don't know if it's safe, but I've been doing it for some time. And basically, it would log into your Twitter and you could set, like, with a drop down, like, delete everything older than 3 months. And it would delete all your tweets older than 3 months. And I really like that just because, like, social media lasts forever and no one's perfect and what have you. And I have such a fear of, like, something I said before coming back to haunt me, even though I like to think I'm a good person. I would never be so dumb, but this fear of, like, growing up with social media in this day and age, it lives within me. So if you want
Uh,
to clean up social, that tweet delete thing, hopefully it's still around and you can use it. I'm going to go after this and check it out myself.
yeah. And, I mean, on that subject real quick, because I think that's really important that social media is forever. At the same time, you can drown out your old stuff. Like if you get to a point that you don't want your sex work popping up all the time, because when I like 2014 to 2016, if you Googled my name, there was a lot of porn and clips for sale and just all these like fetish companies I'd worked for. It was a lot of sexy stuff. But then I started going to all these red carpet events with JD and I became more known in Vegas and I was invited to all these events all the time. And all the media stuff, like all the Getty images and stuff were always there. And because they're always trying to sell those images, like there's so much Getty stuff of me out now. And then all the media, because like our wedding was featured in People magazine and then all these other magazines picked it up. Like there's just so much other media of me. But even aside from that, even if I didn't have the media, if I search my name with something and I'm looking for something for myself, I often just get all my Instagram posts or my Facebook posts. So now, because SEO has tapped into Meta, you can drown out the stuff that you don't want to pop up by posting a lot of what you do want to pop up.
Yeah, that's a super good point. Yeah, and that's like comes down to a volume game. So if you're doing too much explicit and you want to switch it up, just drown it out with a bunch of safe for work, a bunch of social, a bunch of,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, blog posts even. Like, you can go on Medium, you can start a Substack, you can do all of these
Mm-hmm.
things. AI can start you a blog and write you all the pieces. Like,
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
do a lot of things now.
Yes.
I want to kind of end on the note of talking about overwhelm, platforms, burnout. This is a topic we hear a lot about in our community. How do you deal with things like overwhelm and burnout? And when you're managing, two totally different sides of two different industries, like, I'm sure you've come into contact with this at some point. Is there anything you do? Is it just part of this, like, pendulum, how you described balance earlier? I'd like your take on that.
Oh, this is hilarious coming off of the last 6 weeks of my life because I'm not too bad today, but yesterday was like, I need a day to not work and just do nothing because I've had so much travel for makeup work and um, travel is exhausting as is, but then like carrying all my stuff around adds a lot to it. And then there's like all the emails and the like time cards I have to send in because like I just did a job for Ford a few weeks ago and I had to like do all the time card stuff for that. Well, they ended up sending it to my personal account instead of my corporate. And so now I'm dealing with trying to get that fixed while I'm in the middle of all these other trips and other jobs. And um, during those times, social media pretty much, I have to just accept the fact that I'm not posting on social because even posting to my stories, like a picture of me traveling, I'm like, what's the point of that? To say, hey, look at me, I'm traveling. Like, that's not really something I can attach a link to or try to sell something. I don't really have the capacity to think about trying to turn that into something to sell or make it more engaging. So I pretty much just kiss social media goodbye during those points. I do have a social media manager for my modeling account, so at least that stuff stays active. But there's a lot of stuff that I have to just accept it's not going to get done. I'm not going to eat quite as healthy as I want. So like when I'm really, really busy, I just make sure I take my greens powder in the morning. I travel with my electrolytes, even if I'm in town and out running errands. I make sure I have like healthy snack bars. My nutrition is super important to me, as is like working out and sleep. So I prioritize really my basic survival things so that I can at least feel as good as possible. But yeah, I burn out a lot, especially with the amount of content that I have to put out between like social media and OnlyFans. I go through burnout a lot, but I will say I think it hits me quicker now, or I'm at least able to catch the signs of it quicker. And I realize, okay, I need to go to the park. I need to journal. I need to book a session with my life coach. I need to go sit under the moon and cry. I'm super like hippy dippy. So sometimes I really just need like some spiritual time. Um, but I've gotten a lot better at just knowing what I need. And sometimes I'll just book a cabin up at Mount Charleston. It's like an hour from Vegas. I'll just book a cabin and go up there for a night. So it's just kind of little things that I need to help me reset, where I know I'm not going to go and just focus on work the whole time. But it's a real thing, especially with the way the economy is right now. Like it's noticeable. I have a lot of companies that, I was supposed to go do a makeup for a conference in San Francisco, and they're like, hey, unfortunately, we had to cut our budget. And so there's just a lot of, dealing with the fear of, oh, if I rest for too long, then I'm going to start to lose income. And that's a real thing. I don't ever like to say, no, you'll be fine, because no, you do have to keep things going. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. But it's more important that when you're on that cusp of like, I'm going to have a full mentee B if I don't take a day or two off, you need to know which one's worse. If you burn yourself out completely and like, then you can't work for 2 weeks, that's a lot worse than being off for a day or two.
Yeah, that self-awareness I think is huge, and it goes a long way
Yeah.
preventatively even, yeah. Um, I want to kind of in the spirit of wrapping this up because we went long. I'm sorry, and thank you for staying with me, but
Yeah, no, I could talk forever.
I love it. I'm thinking like out of all the things we talked about, or even just something if it comes to mind to you, what would be kind of one takeaway that you would want creators leaving this conversation with or remembering?
I think to ultimately keep in mind that you don't need social media. There's other things you can do, but you're never going to get to a point where like money's just going to be coming to you just because. So you're always going to have to work in some capacity, but you can find systems that work for you better than others. Like I don't do TikTok. I have an account. I hardly post there, and everyone thinks I'm crazy for not utilizing it, but it doesn't come natural to me. I don't enjoy the platform. I don't get lost in the sauce on there, like in the explore page, like I do on Instagram. I just like Instagram better, and Facebook. Well, Facebook for posting, I guess, not scrolling so much, but just do what feels better for you to make your career or careers sustainable. Because the more you fight what you're doing, the less you're going to be able to do it long term. And, it sucks the idea of investing all this time and money and energy into building up a brand and an OnlyFans and all your social media. And then you burn yourself out in a year and you're sick of it.
Yeah. No, that's really well said. And that's the thing. It's like sustainability is what builds the actual business because you have to be able to do it for a long time to build anything kind of worthwhile.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Annalee, this has been amazing. I'm so glad you were able to come on and shared so much of what you shared strategically and just life balance, all the vibes, like everything you've experienced and gone through and what it's kind of been able to be built into. It's really, really phenomenal. I know a lot of creators listening are gonna get tremendous value out of it.
Well, I sure hope so. And, yeah, I thank you for having me, because it's just really nice to be able to talk openly about this stuff. I don't really have a space publicly where I talk about all of this, so it's nice to actually offer some things I've learned.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So if you guys are still listening, you're still here with me, and this conversation with Annalee kind of has you thinking, I want to build something sustainable and I want to manage multiple brands without burning out, grow my income, all of the rest. Just remember, you don't have to figure it out on your own. This is why we have the CEO Society. It is our private community for adult creators who are really serious about building their businesses. And inside you'll find, exclusive courses, tools, peer support, everything to help you navigate, a brand strategy to fan retention, handling challenges like shadowbans, burnout, all the rest. It's just a safe space where creators come together to just share what works, and we all grow faster because of it. It's completely free. It is only for adult creators, and you can join at ceosociety.app. And just remember, like, at the end of the day, you as a creator are not just running a page or logging onto a platform. You are building a career, and it can evolve with you. Your fans, they're not just subscribers, they're your community at the end of the day. And also, you're not just a creator, you're a CEO of your own business. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today's CEO Squad. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.
It would be absolutely incredible if you rated this podcast 5 stars and left a little review. We want to get this podcast to as many adult creators as possible, and you taking a second to leave a couple stars and a review really helps us do that. Thanks so much.